You go into a room and you walk in, you meet a load of strangers, you shake their hand, and straight away afterwards you say, I've got a clue what their names are. Everyone does it. You do, don't you?
Yeah.
We all do it. The reason you're doing that is because your mind is scanning for threat. Your mind is looking at that person, each person that you're being introduced to, and it's going through the database of images of everyone you've met in your past and trying to link that to an emotion. It's trying to see if there's someone that's caused you any kind of threat previously, and it's trying to match that. When it can't match any kind of person that you're meeting in its database, it's on high alert. That's how we're programmed. We're programmed that way. That's a survival instinct. Now, when it comes to opportunities and everything, we look at opportunities the same way. We look at anything sort of negotiating any kind of risk, any kind of uncharted territory. We'll go through the same process. And this is why people don't challenge themselves. They don't take risks because they don't understand the process that they're going through. This causes hesitation, procrastination, everything. But once you understand that, you understand that's part of the program. That's how that's our genetic makeup. Once you understand that, you learn to work with it and learn to understand that. That's a natural thing that's going to happen. So really, when it comes to our survival instinct, there's so many things that we have to bear in mind, that when we're forced into that survival instinct, and you've only got to look at society these days, you look around, you look at the news, it's fear-based, everything is fear-based. And the reason it is, the media, everything is because there's nothing more that will get your attention in the moment than fear. And that's natural. Yeah, everything is fear-based. Fear is just a mental and emotional rehearsal for something you don't want to happen. And you have to control these emotions. You have to understand that that's just our humanness. But it's being worked against us because we don't understand it. We don't understand the power of the subconscious mind. My name is Ollie Ollerton. I'm a former UK Special Forces soldier, former DS of SAS, Who Dares Wins UK, and current DS on SAS Australia, and also CEO of my own company called Breakpoint. The military wants their source of recruitment is always going to be in the younger men that don't have opinions, younger men that do as they're told. And then you look back even further than that, beyond the military and to every single person that lives on this planet, and understand that we're born into this world as creative, amazing human beings. We want to dream, we want to create, we want to experience, and very quickly we're sent to a programming center, which they call a school. And you're basically being programmed for the system, to be a part of the system. The schooling system's not there to teach you to be successful. The system is not, or the schooling program is not there to make sure you don't have any mental health issues and really start to understand your purpose of life. The system is there to make you fit as a cog in a massive machine and just be someone that fits into the system as a factory worker. The whole schooling system was devised by the Rothschilds, and it was based on a factory worker. And that system is so old and is being questioned by a lot of people now. People are starting to understand that there is more to life than what we're led to believe. There is more to us, the infinite potential that we've got. People are starting to see that we have massive potential, and that is being kept from us. It's been kept from us for a long, long time. And when you look at a society, they can't control a society that's full of free-thinking people that want to create wealth and success and happiness. It just won't work for them. You've got to understand that life is not a golden paved path to your dreams. Life is tough. People are going to die. People are going to cheat on you. People are going to go behind your back. Life is tough. And it's about being able to prepare yourself for that. The best way I prepare for everything is the fact that I am always looking to fail. I'm not searching to fail, but I understand that when I fail, it's the biggest weapon we've got. Some people don't want to fail in life. They're programmed into believing that failure is weakness, and it's not. My goals are always big enough that I'm going to keep on failing for the rest of my life. And if you're not failing, then your goals aren't big enough. You're not being challenged. But that is exactly why, or how you build resilience, through failure. 3 simple questions: what did I do well? What didn't I do well? And how am I going to do it differently if I do it again? But people avoid that, and that's the language of the ego. You know, the ego does not want to look like a failure. It's always trying to please the outside world. It's trying to please the audience, and this is where we're stuck. You've only got to look at social media, look at Egogram, and it's all about pleasing the audience. No one on there is telling the story. Everyone on there is faking perfection. And you imagine for kids being brought up into this world, that is absolute toxic. You know, if kids if kids learn to understand that we learn from failure, then we'd embrace that a lot more, and it would prepare us for society. 10,000 years ago, we were hunting and still being hunted for food. The biggest thing on our mind was what was going to kill us. We were trying to get the upper hand so we could eat what was going to eat us. Now look at us. You put someone in the wild, they would fall apart. And really, we have lost being the top of the chain. We were the top of the food chain. No longer are we that. We've got the weakest society ever. Man's purpose is being taken away. You know, we no longer are the protectors. We no longer are the providers. And that is what's causing a lot of mental health issues. In general, we have the weakest society ever recorded. You go down a busy street, you look at someone stops at the zebra crossing to cross the road. You go to London for the day, or anywhere, any city. What is the first thing anyone does? They don't sit and think about their thoughts, think about that moment that they're in. They pull out the phone, they've got that distraction, they're not thinking at all. And they're just being part of the program, part of the matrix. So when I look around me, I just see a lot of weak humans that are basically there trying to put on this bravado face, you know, trying to be the hard man, but underneath that hard shell is an extremely soft center that has no resilience whatsoever. The way we escape the matrix is by working within our 1 meter square. Cut off the outside world and focus on you. Start to become aware of the things that are going on. Start to question the narrative that is being fed and belt fed to us. Start to think for yourself. Start to put away your phone, turn your phone off. Start to get out into the wild. Start to get out into nature and connect with yourself. Stop predicting your life with your past as a reference for that. You know, the majority of people, we don't know how to live in the now. Everyone is trying to predict the future based on a snapshot of the past. And that's basically how the brain works. What's happening is our survival instinct is being brought to the surface through the programming. And basically, there's no stronger driving force in any one of us on this planet than our need for survival. There's no stronger driving force in any animal on this planet and any plant. It's that need for survival. It's a subconscious behavior. You know, it's stronger than you having followers on Instagram. It's stronger than your KPIs at work. It's stronger than you getting a promotion. That is the strongest driving force within us all. And when you start to connect with that and understand how that system works, you can work with it instead of working against it. I used to say that man's greatest discovery is the ability to acknowledge his own dysfunction. I actually don't believe in that. I think it's a contradiction, really. At the end of the day, the dysfunction is society. We struggle to fit into society because of the way it's built, the way it's structured. So it's not us that are at fault. It's the system that we're trying to force or shoehorned into. But once we start to realize this, once we start to work with the pros as well as the cons and stop focusing on this fake imperfection, we'll start to become a lot stronger from within. Constantly walking around saying, embrace this moment, embrace this moment. If you're rushing around doing stuff, you'll usually find that you don't do it any faster anyway. And the reason you're doing that is because you're not in the present. You know, one thing I always say when I'm doing something, whether it's boring or not, just say to yourself, I am the master of this moment. I am in this moment, make the most of every moment. But the thing is, the way the mind is geared up and exactly when it's linked with our survival, we are basing everything as a snapshot of the past. I mean, a lot of people probably, I'm always mentioning the chimp, and this is something that happened to me, obviously 10 years old, and something that I didn't deal with until a couple of years ago, 2019. I didn't deal with it. But that day is so fresh in my mind. I can almost smell the air, I can taste the air in my spit, and the events that happened that day. And probably because of the help of the ayahuasca ceremony I went through that relived that nightmare, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I mean, it was a day like any other as any kid. It was a hot, beautiful summer's day. And I can remember it was an amazing hot summer day. It was one of those summer days you used to get, not like the cold summer days we get these days, but it was boiling hot, beautiful blue skies. And it was that moment when I stepped into that arena with the chimp. And, I'll never forget that. And sort of engaging with that chimp, and then hearing that roar that I'll never forget. And then what happened afterwards was just horrendous. And I know it sounds weird, and I say this, but I am so glad that I had that experience. I'm so glad I lived, obviously, but I'm so glad I had that experience because it taught me so much. And again, these things in life are sent to challenges to make us grow, make us learn and grow. You can't choose what happens to you. But when I look back at that, it was, for me, I've taken so much from that experience, and when I went and did ayahuasca, I went back, I had no idea I was going to go back there to the chimp that day. But the thing is, with ayahuasca, it goes to where it's needed and not where you want it. So regardless of what your intentions are, where you want it to impact, it will go to where it's needed. And this is the thing about trauma for me. It's like you can't, or the problem a lot of people face when they're dealing with trauma is they're trying to be the person they were before the trauma, and you're not that person anymore. And for me, I did what so many people do, and I believe we have this internal self-preservation system, if you want to call it that. So when we go through a traumatic event, we're able to lock away that short-term trauma, and that helps us get through the short term. We can push it away, get through the short term, but we should always go back to that. And I thought I could lock it away and forget it, and it didn't. It haunted me for my life up until 2019. But when I look at the benefits of everything, you've got to look at the silver lining and everything. I always look at the silver lining. As a young boy, that taught me a few things. First of all, that's what created everything I'm about, which is Breakpoint, and that is taking a step into short-term discomfort for long-term gain. The way that we're wired as humans, we won't do that. We're looking for the short-term comfort, and that leads to long-term pain. It taught me something else, that we always, regardless of the situation, we always have a choice. Regardless, we always have a choice. But one of the biggest things I've come up with recently, and I'm forever analysing these past experiences, and we should do that, is that showed me at 10 years old the potential power that we have. If you'd have asked me before that event, do you want to have a fight with a 50-kilogram chimp? Of course I wouldn't. It would put the fear of God into me. Of course I don't want to fight a 50-kilogram chimp at 10 years old. But I found an inner strength in that moment that kept me alive. And this is why I'm so fascinated with the survival instinct that's in us all. Because from that early age at 10, it made me realise we've got far much more strength and potential than we're led to believe. People ask me, do you think you'd have passed Special Forces selection if you'd not been attacked by the chimp? I can't answer that question, but it's an interesting theory, isn't it? But I truly believe it did help me understand that regardless of the pain I'm feeling, regardless of the hardship I'm feeling in that moment, I've got more to give. And that's got to have helped me pass Special Forces selection and all the challenges that came after that. And it was almost like going down a corridor with different options. I had so many doors I could have gone into. Different things that have happened in my life. But the door I got to, it was almost like it felt right to go through that door. And when I went through that door, that took me back to the 10-year-old. And there I was in the circus on that very day, and the same experiences I felt it was like I was there. It was just like I was there. You know, the feeling. And that's really what it works on more than anything. It's the feeling. You know, you can't expect the sort of external experience as such, you know, the touchy. It's the feeling of being there in that place, you know, and connecting with that chimp, and then hearing that roar. You know, I heard that roar and it was like, whoa. I remembered that roar. And then I was absolutely terrified about what was going to happen, because it was the thing that I locked the key on and pushed away for so many years. Like, what was it, 10, 30, 35 years, whatever, later, even more than that. And I knew that I was going to have to go into that. I was waiting for that attack. But that did something quite different in that moment. And instead of me getting attacked, I actually became the chimp. And it was incredible. I was looking at me with my baby, who was the chimp's baby, and I just saw me as the threat. But that taught me so much compassion for the chimp. You know, I went into the chimp's arena that day. It didn't come looking for me. But that taught me so much compassion. And then when I was in that moment, that compassion reflected across every aspect of my life, not just in that moment. You know, the sort of pressure I put on my wife when it comes to the business, etc., etc. And she's got a young boy, you know, that she has to look after as well and make sure he's looked after. And it made me realize that regardless of what I ask her to do, regardless of who I am, her son will always be the priority. You know, that was the same for the chimp. The chimp's priority, that chimp was going to do anything to sacrifice its own well-being, anything to its own health, you know, its own physical health. It was going to do anything to protect its young that day. You know, and that it just reflected on every aspect of my life. And that's why it is so powerful, because it doesn't just mean that moment. It means everything in your life. It reflects on everything. So that was the second experience. The third experience is where I went in. And also, when I came out the second experience, it was like, thank God I never got attacked. And I thought that was it, finished, it's done. And I thought the next night is going to be something different. We'll go into another door. But again, we went on that same, up the dose a little bit more, went down that corridor again, and we ended up going through the same door. And I was almost dragging my heels or with my nails in the floor, just going, please don't take me back there. And we went back there. And that's when I went through that attack. You know, it was that moment I went back to the boy, and this time the chimp attacked me. And it was it was real. And all the time, you know, for my life, I just remembered that attack, and it was like something that I'd managed to, I dry cleaned all the nastiness from that experience, and it became quite a joke. You know, I dry cleaned all the terror I was feeling in that moment. You know, and it was the first time ever I relived that experience, and I knew I was screaming for my mum. You know, when that chimp was, the terror that was going through me, I felt every second of it. And I needed to experience that, to unravel it. And it was at that moment, you know, when I was going into that attack, when the voice in my head said, what would have happened if you'd not fought back? And in that moment, that was, again, powerful. I died. I stopped fighting. I died. I lay down, opened my eyes, looked into the blue eyes of my wife and said, come with me. Don't worry, come with me. We went to the spirit world. And then I wasn't a physical body, I was spirit, and it was the most beautiful thing ever. The most amazing place. So much clarity, so many beautiful noises. The feeling was amazing. I didn't want to come back. But a voice said, there's people that need you. And it almost pulled me back. And then I woke from that experience. And it was incredible, life-changing. But we need to constantly be improving. We're a constant evolution, and we need to be constantly challenging ourselves. It's not about creating as much as we can and then stopping there and then protecting the real estate. You know, and that is basically the survival mind. That's what the survival mind wants to do. It wants to avoid risk, protect your ground. Average is winning. You know, average is just great. That's why only 1% of this world is doing well, because average is just good. Average is absolutely brilliant, and that's the survival mind. It doesn't want to take risks or do anything. It wants to protect its assets. We've got to understand this is the primal instinct, that this is the program, the real program that we work from. There's no stronger driving force than our survival instinct. Our thoughts are so powerful. It's the thoughts that create our reality. And people just don't realize that. It's the most simple thing, but when you sit in that space and realize that, we become what we think about. It becomes our outside reality. And the problem is people just aren't thinking. You've got your frontal cortex, which is 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Some people a lot less, but 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and this is our conscious mind. Now, we are wired negatively. Again, this is linked with the survival instinct. We're wired negatively. And that means, cavemen didn't used to come out their caves 10,000 years ago, look around and think about the networking they could do. They were thinking about everything that could kill them. So everyone can relate to that. When it comes to our survival instinct, there's absolutely no benefit in thinking positively. Absolutely nil. So that's why we are predominantly negative. Everyone can relate to that. As soon as you come up with something you want to do, you'll think of 1,000 reasons not to do it, if you give yourself time to do so. And really, for me, this is like just being aware of that, just understanding that we're wired negatively. 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day, we are predominantly going to focus on the negative unless we have some clear direction about what we want to do and what we want to achieve. But we've got to understand that that is created through our thoughts, and our thoughts become our reality. There's only two ways you can affect the subconscious mind, and that is a highly impactful emotional situation. That could be someone getting shot, that could be a positive thing like getting married or whatever it is. That affects and has an impression on the subconscious mind. The only other thing that can impact the subconscious mind is repetition, constant repetition. And in here lies the problem. That's why people that are constantly told all their life that they're worthless, they're useless, then they adopt that message themselves and tell themselves all the time, I'm worthless, I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm that. And what does the subconscious mind do? It's the blind master that listens to the message. It will do exactly what it's told. And once it goes or is impressed upon the subconscious, it has no other way but to come out as form. And that's our outside world. And when you start to understand that, if I asked you to do a picture of the brain, you could probably do a picture of the brain, probably quite funny, but I could probably get the gist it was a picture of the brain. But if I asked you to do a picture of the mind, what would that look like? There is no picture of the mind. Absolutely no picture of the mind. And really, it's a guy called Dr. Thurman Fleet that came up with this. It's called the Stick Man. 1934 he came up with this. And he tried to put into an image of how our system works. We've got our five senses which stimulate our thoughts. Our thoughts come into our conscious mind. And the more we impress the thoughts in our conscious mind on our subconscious, once we do that, it has no other way but to come out as form, which then creates a reaction. And that is really how the mind works. And that's why I'm very strong on the fact that the first law of success is repetition. Because first of all, we have to control the thoughts that are going on in our head. This is why I have to build positive affirmations. As soon as we come up with something that is very negative, which predominantly we are negative, we have to combat that with something positive, something to overwrite that program. You can't change the old system, but you can build one that's stronger, a new system that's stronger. So the more we repeat that positivity and the outcomes that we want, it becomes a super highway, and the old negative habits turn into like an A road. And the more we can work on that, the stronger that becomes. But people, if that goes unchecked, people are just allowing the program just to control them. People, you've got to imagine from 0 to 7, you're being programmed. You have no conscious mind. You don't actually get an analytical mind until you're 12 years old. So that's really a long time of programming. Everything you see feel, touch, hear, whatever goes into your subconscious, that becomes our programming. We learn more in those years than you will learn all your life. And to rewrite that program is extremely hard to do, but you can only do that through repetition. And that is what I did when I went into that house 2014. I had to control and change the pattern of who I was. And that is changing the subconscious program. And that is just through your thoughts. Everything is through your thoughts. But how we interpret something, I'll interpret something very different to how you interpret it. You know, some people can look at something and change that to negative. We are like a tuning fork of energy. Energy comes to us and through us, and it's how we interpret that energy that becomes our outside world. Look at what you sound, look at what you're wearing. Everything began as a thought. Everything began as a thought. You know, it's just like understanding that manifestation 100% works. When you create a thought, you create a thing. It's already there. You know, and what I say to people as well, you've got to understand that nothing's created or destroyed. It's already here. Nothing is created or destroyed. But life's journey is about being able to clear the things out the way to get to it. You know, people think that, you know, I've got to get myself lined up for the opportunities. Or I've got to wait till the opportunities line up. They're there. The opportunities are already lined up. It's us that we need to line up first to be able to see them. You know, it's like so many opportunities you know, I come across them all the time. Like last week, it was like an opportunity staring me straight in the face. And as soon as someone got me to look to my left, I went bang. And it was like an epiphany. And some people just don't see in the opportunities. You know, you've got to understand as well, we work from energy and frequency, vibration. Everything is vibrating, everything. You know, and that creates a signature, a frequency. And the higher we can get that vibration within ourselves, the better situations we will create in our life. People that vibrate on a lower frequency, they're the people that get hardship and negative situations. But really, you know, I'm all about creating that that energy, that frequency, and making sure that there's nothing in my path that's going to disrupt that. Drink, drugs, negative relationships, all kinds of things. Food, everything has a frequency, a signature. So I'm not prepared to allow anything into my system that is going to disrupt that energy. But really, this is why the opportunities is already there. We just have to clear the path to it. Nothing is created or destroyed. Just imagine what you want is already there. It's sat there, already there. But all you've got to do is clear the path, get the obstacles out the way to get to it. And when you start looking at your goals like that, you're not thinking about something that you've got to create in the future. You just understand that it's already sat there waiting for you. I wish if people started to understand that, the potential of who we are, the humanness, our human potential, we are so powerful.
If you enjoyed this video, please support us at www.mulliganbrothers.com, where you can now get the Memento Mori poster, a poster to remind you that you are going to die. It's interactive and it is the biggest motivator for me right now. Use code STOIC for 10% off at checkout. I'll see you in the next one.